Hi, I'm Andy Aledort, and in today's lesson I'm going to teach you how to play the classic rock song Neil Young's Cinnamon Girl. Cinnamon Girl is played in an unusual tuning. It's called double dropped D. Double drop D is where you tune both E strings, the 6th string and the 1st string, down a whole step to D. So the tuning across all the strings, going from 6th to 1st string, would be D, A, D, G, B, and D. Cinnamon Girl features two distinct electric guitar parts. They may both be played by Neil, but perhaps not, because the song was recorded with the band Crazy Horse. And Crazy Horse had two different other guitar players, depending on when it was. Danny Whitten originally, and Nils Lofgren after that. So it could be one of those guys, or both parts could be played by Neil. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to show you first the most straightforward way to play the song. There are lots of little intricate picking things when you listen to the record, and distinct differences between those two guitar parts, and the way the two parts weave together is what makes it sound so cool. But if you watch Neil Young play the song, he plays it in a much more straightforward manner. So I'm going to show you how to play it like that first, because it's quickest and most useful way to play the song. And then we'll take a look at all those little variations that you can do, little ways to arpeggiate the chords or add little riffs to embellish the song a little more. So let's start with the Cinnamon Girl intro. 1, 2, 3, and... All right, so what Neil does is he goes from C to D, but the way he plays it is without a root note on the A string. It's like your typical 5th string root bar chords that go from C to D. And then the other thing is, with the drop D tuning on top, you could actually lay across all the strings and get your major chord like that. Normally the note would be back here on a D chord, it would be like that. But with the drop tuning, that's not the right note. So the main guitar, and if you watch videos of Neil, you see him just go. So you can bar across the D, G, and B strings, or if you want, get all 4 top strings. Either is fine. Then you're going to switch to a C chord. So that's 3rd fret of the A, 2nd fret of the D, open G, 1st fret of the B. And we're going to walk down the A string. But after hitting the full chord. So you can see I'm hitting more than just the A string. I'm at least hitting the A and the D, if not the G string as well. Then we're going to land index finger across the bottom 3 strings at the 3rd fret. Because in drop D tuning with the low D on the bottom, what would normally be an F5 chord fretted like that, that F note now is up at the 3rd fret because we tune the string down. You have to go higher to get the same note. And it facilitates power chords on the bottom 3 strings. You could just lay across a fret on those 3 strings and get power chords. So one more time. Or switching to the index finger, which sets up the move index to ring on the 5th fret, F5 to G5. And that repeats. But then you just hang on the F, you don't play the G again. That's played twice. Into the verse. So now here's the verse section. 1, 2, 3, and. All right, so again, this is the very straightforward way to play the song, the way you will see Neil play it if you watch videos of him. All straight strumming, no intricate picking. And it's a great way to approach it at first to learn the song. So, you start with a D5 chord. You've only got the 2nd fret of the G and 3rd fret of the B fretted. Don't forget, that high E string is a D now as well. So you've got unisons there. And I'm strumming from the 5th string across. So this is A minor 7, but with that D on top, it makes it A minor 7 sus 4. So that's one of the reasons it's such a pretty sounding chord. One more time. So I'm going down, up, ending that up on the higher strings. Then C, 3rd fret, 2nd fret, 1st fret. Again, it's real pretty because of that D that's sustained through all the chords. This here is G with a B bass. So you have 2nd fret of the A string, open D, open G, 3rd fret of the B string. And you could have that open top string in there as well because it can be there for all the chords. So that open high D string sounds great in all the chords. And then that intro lick comes back. So what's happening here, starting on F5, that's 3rd fret of the bottom 3 strings, G5, 5th fret, then just pick the open A to C5, 3rd fret of the A, 5th fret of the D and the G, open A, slide that up from C5 to D5, 5th fret, 7th, 7th. So one more time, you're coming off those verse chords. Right here. And what's neat is Neil always switches from the 5th string, 5th fret, root, D5 power chord up here to a regular D5 chord down here in 1st position before going. It's just neat. Okay, so we come up. You're going to jump right to a C chord. And what Neil does is he comes off all the strings. Right to a straight A minor, second fret of the D, second fret of the G, first fret of the B. Don't forget that open D on top. And the thing that's a little deceptive about it is when you listen to the record, you can hear things like, or you can hear that B string, first fret and open, and the D string, second fret and open. It's harder to hear what's happening on the fifth string. But watching the vids, it makes sense. It also sounds a little like the second guitar goes, or the bass does that as well. Third fret, second fret, third fret on the A string. But it just has that Neil Young quality if you come off all of them. That's repeated. Goes back to the intro figure. All right, that's followed by another verse that contains all those guitar parts that we just did. The part where you go from D to A minor 7, sus4 to C, G to B bass. One more time, same deal, and then followed again by the intro figure. And that's repeated again, and then that brings us up to the bridge. So we're going to play the bridge right now. Bridge starts on a C chord. And again, when you play these fifth string root power chords or bar chords, in this tuning with the drop D on top, you can actually bar across all the strings and still get a triad. And that's what Neil does. Okay, so here's the Cinema Girl bridge. 1, 2, 3, and... We started on that C chord. If you want to go straight across that 5th fret on the top 4 strings. Now here I'm just strumming it again. I'm trying to show you the most straightforward way to play the song. You can always add the arpeggiated embellishments like you hear on the record. Picking the strings individually. So we stay on that C chord for 3 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is a really nice chord here. It's really just G minor 7. But with that drop D on top, it just sounds really nice. And it's a chord you wouldn't be able to get unless you were in this tuning, because you'd have to reach back there and it would look like that. So it's impractical. This way, it's easy, and it sounds great. So I have the 5th fret of the A, 5th fret of the D, barring across the top 3 at the 3rd. So 3 bars, 2, 3, 1, 2. So we're going to be on this G minor 7 for 2 bars, and then he just goes to an A power chord, open A, 2nd fret of the D, 2nd fret of the G. But you could get that D in there again. I'm not really getting that second fret of the B string major third, because I don't really hear it on the recording. It wouldn't be terrible. Either way. Or you could fret a D here. The only thing is it's not really that defined. If you just hit those three strings and kind of haphazardly get that open D in there, it sounds a little better. And then that takes us to the solo section. All right, let's go back to the verse section now and get into some of the little embellishments that you can do on those rhythm guitar parts. 1, 2, 3, and... All right, for the first chord, pretty much strummed it, but then you can reverse arpeggiate. Just go picking first, second, third, fourth. And then on the A minor 7, so I strummed across, raked across the 5th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings. Took my index finger off, put it back on the B string. First time I went, so first fret of the B, open G, open D, then to the C chord and arpeggiate it all the way across, which means pick the notes, the strings individually. I did the same thing for the G with the B bass. To the riff. And then that time, after hitting the A minor with the open D on top at the end of the form, I arpeggiated again. Open high E, first fret of the B, open G, back to the form. Hit the chord and then reverse arpeggiate. Same thing as the first time. But then I went I'm actually trying to combine the two guitar parts here. You can hear one guitar bring in that what functions sort of like a major 7 on the C chord, that open B string. It just sounds really cool to go. Just hear that open B for a second. Then I put a B on the 2nd fret of the A string as a means of walking up to the C chord. And then I did another little embellishment at the end of the G with the B bass chord. So you pick the notes across individually, then open A, hammer to the 2nd fret, open D. Back to that riff. So listen closely to the recording, and if you can, isolate the left and right channel so you can hear the two separate guitar parts. They're panned hard right and left. And then you can really focus in on those little intricacies, those different parts, if you want to hear exactly what Neil did. It's also just as much fun to experiment and try moving a note, lifting a finger or two on a fretted chord, and see what you come up with. Because Neil's approach is very much that of a folk singer banging on an acoustic guitar. He's just going to play the chord forms and move around, use some different picking techniques, and just try to make it sound musical. That's the best approach to take. All right, we're now up to the guitar solo. The guitar solo is played over the verse chord progression, and it is very famously revered and always alluded to as the one-note guitar solo because you hear this, those unison Ds, the fretted third fret of the B and the open high E string tuned down to D through most of the solo, but actually there's a little bit more going on. So here is the guitar solo. 1, 2, 3. All right, so you could play the solo. Or as you'll see Neil do live sometimes, and sometimes he'll use the arm. That Bigsby he has on Old Black on his Les Paul. But when you listen to the studio record, you can hear some of that high E string, the major third that's going to come in 4th fret. And then so I went to the 2nd fret of the high E, played with the 3rd fret of the B. So we went from so I picked both strings, and then I just picked the B. And then I drop an A on the 2nd fret of the G string, just for the one hit. Back to that 3rd fret of the B, then more unisons. Right there, that would be over the C chord. And then the first time on the G chord, you can hear him go. So you got a little quick slide up to the 4th fret of the G string with the 3rd fret of the B and the open 1st string. Then you're going to go 1st fret with the open high E, and then top 2 strings open. Back to the lick. And the second time, it's simpler. He just keeps banging on those unison Ds. But he puts that A in the 2nd bar. One more time to the 1st fret and open. And then back to the normal chords. If you listen closely, you can hear the rhythm guitar part playing some embellishments as well. And one of the cool things that happens is you can kind of hear this little melody that could be played 2nd fret of the 1st string, open, 1st fret of the 2nd string, 2nd fret of the 3rd string, or that would be 2nd fret of the 1st string, 3rd fret of the B, 1st fret of the B, 2nd fret of the G. If you put that in with the chords, like that. So you hear this little weaving of the mixed in with the and it makes a great sound. At the end of the guitar solo, they wrap up with a, and then the song ends. Slight retard. And then one guitar does this little vamp thing in free time off of the D5 chord. By holding the chord and hammering. All right, here's the riff that he plays. At the end there, these harmonics, just by laying across the 7th fret on the top 4 strings. So it's a very free part. He never plays this the same way live. And it's a little confusing to try to play it exactly like the record. So you hold the 2nd fret of the G, 3rd fret of the B, and you're going to go. Start by picking the open A, hammer onto the 3rd fret, and then pick the open D, 2nd fret of the G. But hold this chord the whole time. Then you're going to move that hammer from the A string over to the D string. So the first one, second one, then that little hammering figure jumps between the D string and the G string. Back to, and then, so there's a logic to it. You go on the A string, the D string, the D and the G, the D, the A. So you're just kind of walking across from low to high and back. Then he does the double hammer on the A and the D string. Does that twice. Back to the hammer on the G, on the D. Then he plays one that he hadn't done before. So you're going to pick the D string and the G, hammer on, 3rd fret of the D, off, 3rd fret of the A, back to the D. And then he moves that over to the A, and then picks the open low D. So it's a little confusing, but he's really just alternating from A to D to G, back and forth. One more time, slow. And then pick those harmonics.